Hello, everyone. Allison from AllisonReeves.co here with the Mind Your Marketing podcast. And today I have a guest that I am super excited to talk to, Michelle Gordon. She's going to share her story of how she went from anxiety and alcohol to a joyful six-figure business and life. I'm going to ask her a million questions about it. And if you're here live too, feel free to do the same. With all that said, I'm going to play our intro and then we'll just jump in. So, Michelle, you're my first guest in many months. I'm excited to have you after taking a break and just kind of figuring out what we wanted to do. But I would love for you to give us like the fuller introduction of who you are and what you do.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. My name's Michelle Gordon. I am a registered nurse of 25 years. I'm based in Australia and I am a master neuro-linguistic programming practitioner and mum of 3 children. And now I've had my own business for the last 3.5 years now, coaching, helping women become free from overwhelm and burnout.
That is amazing. Yeah. So I really just kind of want to dive right into your story because when we first connected, like obviously the title of this podcast episode is pretty specific about what your story is into. So I'd kind of like to know, like, if you just want to give us like the jumping off point of your story, and then I'm kind of want to wind into like how you got into business, but tell me how this all started.
Yeah, this started for me back in 2016 to 2018. And I obviously have been nursing for a long time, and I had 3 small children at the time. My children, I've got 2 older boys that are in their teenage years now, and a little girl who was 8. So she was 2 years old or 3 years old. She was only very young. I was working full time in an emergency department here in my local region, and I was really trying to support our family. My husband had started his business, and I took it on myself to, I guess, take the the load off of everyone. I was running around the emergency department. I was working 5, 6, 7 shifts a week, looking, trying to do mum life and show up as a mum and a wife as well, while also supporting my husband and this new business venture that he was on. And I did this for what feels like the longest time. And by sort of 2016, 2017, right in that middle there, I hit rock bottom and I hit absolute burnout, probably stage 12 burnout, which is that physical, emotional, mental collapse. And that really sparked this journey for me.
Yeah. Did you know that you were approaching burnout?
I just knew something was wrong probably halfway through 2016. And I started to notice that my habits had changed. I started to notice that my energy had changed. I noticed that my health was changing. So my health was deteriorating. I gained weight. I was feeling really sluggish. And I noticed a few things. However, one of the stages in burnout is that you push through and you keep going. And by 2017, I knew then that I was in a really dark place. And that was when I had started to rely on alcohol at the end of the day to get through. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 glasses to wind down. It was sometimes 1 or 2 bottles of wine.
Mm, yeah. And was so then, because what I'm curious about too is like this, it's so easy to get into patterns like this, and people may hear like a bottle or two of wine, and I'm like, yeah, I can relate to that. And I think we don't talk about it. We go into the doctor's office and we fill out the survey and it says, how many drinks a day do you have? And you say two, and then you feel fine. But really thinking about it, like when you are someone who likes to drink, which not everybody does, it's so easy to just like have one at the end of the day, make dinner, have one with dinner, watch some TV, and then have a couple, like, it's
Yeah.
just so easy to snowball, but what was because it wasn't the drinking, I'm guessing it wasn't the drinking where you were like, "Something has to change." It was like, what was the wall that you hit where you couldn't keep going the way that you were?
Yeah, there was 2, I guess, 2 moments where I realized that this things needed to change, and I was showing up in the emergency department. I'd start my day out feeling a bit ugh because I'd obviously been drinking the night before, but I would show up and give my 100%. And it was just, I realized that I was giving so much to my work, so much to my patients, so much to my colleagues. I was just giving so much there, and I hadn't given anything to myself. Like I just didn't care for myself.
Mm.
I'd also was giving a lot to my family, and I was, making sure I was cooking dinner and everyone was fed and everyone was taken to their sports commitments, and I was running around. And one of the moments, there was 2 moments. One of the moments was when my little girl, who was 2 and a half, toddled up to me, and she found me. She was wandering around at the end of the day, or late in the afternoon. I'd just gotten home from work and poured the wine and sat down, and I was, sitting there, thinking about getting up to cook dinner, and I'd probably had 2 glasses of wine, and she sort of walked up to me, and she stood right in front of me, this tiny little person, and she reached out and grabbed my face and just looked at me and said, "Mummy, where are you?" And just,
Oh.
yeah,
Mm.
staring at me in the eyes, and it was like, whoa, like this big jolt back to reality, because she knew that I wasn't there. I was physically there, but mentally I was a million miles away.
Wow. Wow,
And
yeah, that would be moment enough. I mean, that's definitely a wake-up call, and was there a second thing where you were like, "Okay, we can't keep going?"
yeah, the second time this was probably not long after that moment, and my husband was away for work, and I woke up one morning. I had a few days off. And I woke up one morning on the floor in the lounge room with smashed bottles of wine around me, and I'd passed out from the night before. And I woke up and I didn't know whether I was alive. I didn't know whether I was dead. I didn't know what had happened. And I just went, wow, how did I get here? Like, how did you get here, Michelle? Enough's enough. And that was when had to pick myself up and find a way out of the depths of burnout that I had ventured my way into. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
mm,
Wow, that is really powerful. And I think it's so important for people listening to, because I feel like we go through life with discomfort and or stressors, and we ignore them, and especially I think the most of our societies do this. I think the women get hit especially hard because not only are we kind of forced into ignoring our feelings, but we have more intuition and feelings naturally for the most part. Um, and one thing that I've been really thinking about a lot lately is how, because we're taught to ignore and repress our feelings, it causes things like this, like eventually like burnout, where we just snowball into ignoring our feelings so much, and then one day we hit a wall and we can't. But it's also like it's so insidious and subtle, where I feel like my um ability to ignore my feelings, or my propensity to ignore my feelings or stuff them down, has just like blocked so much abundance for me in
mm,
with money and in business, but also in just like enjoying life. Where and then eventually it got to the point where I was like, why am I doing all of this? Why am I here? I put so much of my identity into this one thing, and then when that one thing seemed like it may not be there anymore, I was like, who am I? What am I doing? And
yeah,
I think one of the lessons is like, if we just slow down and feel, you might have had so many other signals where you could have caught it. Or and so, okay, had two big wake up moments, and then what? Like, and then how did you figure out, like, what to do?
Yeah, so I in leading up sort of along that sort of 2-year journey of burning out, I had reached out to my hospital where I work, my employer, who, we have a thing over here called the Employee Assistance Program, which is for staff of the hospitals that we work in to seek counselling and support that way. And you're allowed to have 6 sessions or visit them anytime or make that phone call. And I had done that twice. And both times I wasn't supported in the way that I needed. I didn't feel seen. I didn't felt all I was talking about was the same thing over and over again. And there was no real way forward for me or any tools or strategies that I was able to take from that. To me, it was just sitting there talking to somebody that felt like a waste of time. And I thought,
Mm,
how am I going to? This is ridiculous. This is supposed to help me, and there's no help here. So I looked at coaching, and I had never worked with a coach before, and I invested a little bit of money. It scared me because it was coming from my own pocket. Um, and I invested in it was health and fitness coaching. However, there was a lot of mindset stuff as well. So it was
mm,
fitness, and mindset really. And I invested in that and worked with this lady for probably 6 months. And she really supported me to through the mindset stuff, but also to help me I guess, implement some empowering habits that I obviously wasn't doing, and replacing the alcohol with other habits. So going for a walk or taking myself to the gym and getting out in nature. And there was a few things that I did, and she was literally in my back pocket, which she was, great. That was obviously a package that I'd signed up to, and I was working with her. And I started to see a way out. It wasn't just sitting and talking, it was actually doing things that was, proactive and moving towards the person that I wanted to be. And that was the very first step that I took. And then beyond there, I really saw coaching as this incredible, I guess, way of connecting to my full potential and to my authentic self. And I'd never done that before. Like, I didn't, in all my years leading up to that, like you were saying about being numb, I'd switched off my emotions a long time ago. I had to, as a nurse, it was part of my role. You can't be
mhm,
feeling all the feels when you're in the resus room and um, all of those things. And I'd very much turned off my emotions. So this whole coaching journey that I went and embarked on was about me really getting in touch with myself, understanding who I was as a person, not just the nurse or the mum, but who was I deep inside? What did I stand for? I realized that I was an emotional being. I was very intuitive, and I'd turned all that off. So it was really reconnecting with me again.
mm. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. And then I'm curious, so hit a wall, tried one thing, didn't work, found a coach, and then that worked. And then at some point in your journey, you became a coach. And I became a coach because I had a good experience with coaching, but I also saw opportunities where like I was unique or like there was a part of that process that didn't work for me that I feel like I need to teach other people. And so how did you discover like how did you land into the modalities that you empower people with now? And tell us
Yeah.
more about, I guess that tell us about what you are doing now and how you kind of landed in that.
Yeah. So after I finished with the coach that I had reached out to and worked with, I pretty much embarked on my own little sort of journey. I was doing a lot of like sitting up at night, and I wasn't drinking alcohol, and I was like Tony Robbins and all of these amazing people. I was just spending so much time just listening to their content and listening to what they were saying. And oh gosh, there were so many people. I just went on this big, rabbit hole, just went down and started to get excited about life again. And then somebody had a few people started to reach out to me at work. So there was quite a few nurses that said to me, "What are you doing, Michelle? You look so different. Your energy is high, your skin's beautiful, you look so great. You're really confident now, like you just look like a different person." And they had seen this transformation but didn't realize what I had gone through. And they sort of a lot of these women were nurses too, and said, "Can you help me?" And that's when I sat with that for a little while and went, "Well, yes, I can. Like I can help. What does that look like?" And I very then embarked on like the step-by-step processes that I had taken, the step-by-step, I guess, journey that I had taken, and realized that there was a lot of mindset work in what I'd done. There was a lot of cleaning up the resistance. So, really looking at my limiting beliefs. I really discovered then that I was a people pleaser, that I was a high achiever, and that I was a perfectionist. And these three traits very much fueled my state of burnout, and do for a lot of the women that I now work with. And I started to pull apart that there was a real process that I'd gone through, and I documented everything. And I pr- wrote it into essentially an online course. And then in 2020, so it took me about 12 months to document that journey and create that into a course. And then in 2020, I launched what is now called the Health and Happiness Formula, which is a
Mhm.
12-week online course with coaching with me, where I help women through the journey. So, they're past versions of me who are stuck in that life feeling frustrated, and they've got these unhelpful habits that they know are not serving them, and they feel disconnected from themselves and life. And I work with them over 3 months to help them overcome all of those things, clean up the resistance, clean up those old patterns, really hone in on their mindset and reconnect with themselves and their emotions.
Yeah, that's amazing. And for the people who work with you, like you're helping them with like you kind of just explain the process of like it's the mindset, the resistance, getting in touch with themselves. And what are the results that you see from that process for your clients?
Oh, it's mind blowing. It's my favorite thing to do ever. Like it is just, I have women come to me at their rock bottom. So, I'm done with life. I don't know who I am anymore. I can't even wake up. I've had women that can't even get out of bed in the morning, and they've got children that are dependent on them, and husbands that are, wanting their wife to be present and human again and functioning. And these women literally within 4 to 6 weeks start to go through that same journey and notice their energy come back. They notice a real connection back to themselves and to their life. They start to really work out what are their life priorities, what do they value, and bringing that bringing those things back into their life, like their values, and understanding what their values are, and also joy, because a lot of them haven't felt joy forever. And when these women come to me, I ask them, "What lights you up?" They don't know. They're like,
Mhm.
"I'm so numb. I don't know." So there's and what happens in that process, so I call it the alignment process. They come back to alignment of who they are, what they want, what their goals are, what they want out of life, and we start to create a plan for that to happen. And I've had women, that have gone from just so many things dropping into their lives, like wealth opportunities, career, financial. Some have started businesses that are successful. Some women have gone on to land their dream job, deeper relationships with their husband, buying their dream home properties. Like all of these things have come from really coming back to themselves and that beautiful alignment.
Yeah. I think that's such an important, like, question to answer on, like, the results that people see because, like, a question I had in my own journey, which is, like, kind of vulnerable to share, is, like, what's the point of loving myself? Like, I had this conversation with a colleague of mine who's also a coach who is really good at loving herself and attuning to herself and manifesting. And she said, like, the most important thing, like the reason to live is to like learn love yourself. And I'm like, why? Like, what's the point? And I think that's another symptom of like what we've been taught to like put ourselves at the bottom of the list and overachieve and not feel and all those things. But the point of tuning to yourself and feeling is all these things you just mentioned: better relationship, more enjoyment, bringing into your life the things that you want. Like, if you don't cultivate self love, you create all kinds of blockers to actually having a life that you can enjoy. So I love all of those results. Um, if people, because ultimately the goal is for people to hear this podcast or learn about your work before they hit the wall, right? Like usually people hit the wall and they're like, "Oh shit, I can't do this anymore." So what advice do you have for people if they feel like something is off, but they're not in enough pain to like hire a coach yet? Like what are the signs and symptoms and what is the way to like stop the bleeding as soon as possible?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I feel like I think that's stopping and really recognizing what's going on. A big part of burning out, and when you get to that stage or state, it's it's about pushing through. I'll just keep going, and I'll just keep going, and I'll just ignore it, and I'll that is going to end up, you're going to end up in a worse situation. So the stopping and recognizing where you're at is really important, and just actually owning it. I think when you stop and really accept, hey, this is where I am and I'm not in a good place and I don't feel great and I know my health is now on, starting to deteriorate and my relationships, it's really confronting.
Mm,
But you have to confront that to really realize, okay, this is not okay. And then it's looking at, well, what is it that I value most, and where is the misalignment in my life right now? Because with burnout happens because of chronic misalignment. And
mm,
that chronic misalignment is when you're dedicating your time to activities and things that don't serve you anymore or don't light you up.
yeah. Ooh, I love
And
that. Burnout is caused by chronic misalignment.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. And so many people do the same thing because they think they have to just stay in the same job or stay in the same relationship or stay in the same place, when actually life is so cyclic and things change, that we need to do this re-evaluation process and really look at, well, where I was running around the emergency department with three small children and my husband starting a business. My values were completely misaligned. I've said I valued family, and I said I valued health and fitness, and I said I valued freedom and calmness, and yet my life was anything but that.
yeah. What would you change now? Because I think this another trap that people get in is like, I can think of people I've worked with who are like, "There's nothing I can give up. I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this." And that kind of sounds like your situation was like that. I have to work. I have to take care of my 3 kids. I have to show up like, help my husband or like be present or fill in this role. So what would you do differently to have stopped the burnout?
Oh, I didn't have the awareness back then. I really didn't.
If you had
And
the awareness, what could you have done?
I would have really sat down and prioritized what was important to me in terms of my life priorities at the time, and where was the imbalance? Like, where was I spending all of my time and energy? And for me, that was work,
Mm,
and work wasn't lighting me up. Like, it just wasn't. And yet I was dedicating all of my time there. I was going to all of the social functions outside of work. I was doing all of these extra shifts. And yet I crave family and health. Like,
yeah,
it was just didn't match up. So I think that's where you need to get super clear, because no one can do all of the things.
yeah, yeah.
It's just
Enjoyment may take a little bit of sacrifice.
yeah.
Yeah,
And if you are, doing what I was, and it's, work, 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 there's the imbalance. Like, life is, you're meant to be here to live the richness and fullness of life and experience, and that's not working, you know 7 days a week and 14-hour days. It's just not.
yeah, yeah. Well, I have your website in the comments below, but is there anything else that you or in the description? Is there anything else you want people to know or that you want to share or point people towards?
No, I just, if this resonates with anyone, I think, listen to this episode again. This is something that I very much did, listening to podcasts on my journey, um,
Mm,
taking down these hints and tips. Like, I really got into that stage where I started to see the way out. And if things haven't worked for you in the past, like for me, it was counseling. Like, everyone responds differently to different modalities, and I think, try something different. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I love counseling and coaching is such a different experience. Like I'm sure a lot of people listening to this have had a coach, but having somebody walk with you in a different way, like they both have their place, but most of I would say all of the biggest transformations I've had were in coaching containers. And yeah, so if this is resonating, go look at Michelle. She's got a bunch of great content on the internet and things for sale. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Alison. It was so great to be here.
Yeah.